Hi there guys, my name's Conor and I am a wildlife artist that specialises in both graphite and scratchboard. So well done if you've made it this far. This is the fourth and final part of this fur masterclass in graphite. So in this fourth and final part we're going to be looking at how to create this chin texture and also how to bring up this dark texture overlapping the whiskers and just create this edging, and then finally just adding those few final details and really boosting up that contrast. So I hope that you enjoy this one and let's get started. Right then guys, so you can now see that we've got the sort of other side of this cheek in. The technique that I used for this was exactly the same as what I showed you on the left hand side, but it was basically a repeat, so I've just gone ahead and put that in. Now, the final parts that we're going to be working on are going to be sort of down here on this sort of initial part of the chin, and then just finishing off around these edges, and then we just need to go around and add those final touch-ups. Now, I did also just darken a few areas because obviously, like I've been saying, as you add in more of these dark values, other things you realise need adjusting. So now that I've done this area, I knew that these areas just needed adjusted, so I've just added some dark values there. Now for this chin area, you can see that the fur initially is quite sparse. There's just a couple of sort of fur lines, and this just makes it a little bit more difficult to judge where your marks are going to be. I'm just using the thicker end of this indenting tool, just because some of these furs are a little bit thicker. Now, it will vary between the two ends that I'm using. Now, I've still got both of my reference photos up, so one with my line art over the top of it, and then the original reference photo. Now, it's not going to, like I say, match up exactly. I just want this general feel of a couple of strands of fur in this area. I think you can just about see those being picked up. As we get sort of further down to the sort of bottom of this chin, the fur starts to get a little bit thicker. So I think I'll leave it just at that point for now and just start to get some of these initial layers in. So I'm just going to use my 2B, and I'm just going to lightly shade over the top just so that I can see where I've actually got my marks in, because even though, like I say, I can just about see it, it is a little bit difficult at times. So until you've got that bit of graphite over the top, it's a little bit harder to judge. Now, this sort of very first layer, like with the other areas, we're just going to keep light, because if you do end up needing to erase it and put more fur strands in, it's easier to erase with it just being a light layer. So you can just about now see these fur strands. Now they'll start to look more prominent as you get a darker layer over the top of it. So I'm just going to map out where there's a bit of a clump underneath this chin. Now, as well as being sort of more spaced apart, the fur up here is shorter. So that's something we're paying attention to as well. So as we're coming down, this fur is just a bit longer. So let's just start bringing this fur down into this area. Right then, so still using our 2B, but we're just gonna pull this down. Just starts to come around here, so I'm just going to outline that so I know. And then again, same for here, and that's where the outlined edges are. So we're just trying to slowly build up this area. We're not going too fast. We're really trying to take our time with it, just because it is, like I say, a complicated area, and we don't want. So let me just zoom out my reference photo. We don't want things looking out of place. So this is another key section just here. So at the minute, when I'm looking at my reference photo, I'm just looking for the general sort of shapes in this fur. So I can see that we've got like an area of white fur coming around here, and then this area is quite dark, and that's just what I'm trying to get in. Nothing more than that at the minute. And then as we move along, we'll sort of refine it a little bit more. And again, just putting in some dark just so that I know where I got up to. And then there's a dark gap just down here as well, with just a little bit of a fur strand in there. In between these two, we're just now looking at the fur. And like I say, you don't have to follow exactly. If you want to add a few more bits of fur in, that's okay as well, as long as you don't, you know, go too off. But generally, if this was a different tiger, or you caught it at a different time of day, or looking in a different direction, you would have all these little changes as well. And again, it's just a whisker that's going to come out and up there. And then another small one that's just going to go that way. And again, we're still using that 2B pencil, we haven't changed yet. I know it's probably going to be a little bit difficult to actually see the indenting marks that I've made. It's quite difficult to see in the studio as it is. So I've got my light, I've got a couple of lights actually, but I've got my light on above at a slight angle, just so that it's trying to cast a shadow into those indented marks. So that would be a tip for you guys if you are struggling to see. The sort of bigger an angle you have, so for example, if I just pull this down and you have it sort of there, in person you can see these a lot more. So obviously, whatever you need to do to be able to see these marks. This is just the edge now of that chin. Still need to put some more further detail there. It's quite a complex, I was going to say complex and complicated then, so it's quite a complicated and complex area. So we really are just taking our time. It's really important you try not to rush these areas. On a smaller piece, this would be a little bit easier because each of your indenting marks would cover a fair bit more of an area. But with it being so large, it just takes a bit of time to build up. Okay, so I'm going to start adding a little bit more detail down this middle. Now we'd already put the indenting marks down here if you remember. And again, just spacing them out a little bit. I just want it to look a bit more like clumped fur. Because it's almost, if this picture was a bit bigger, this chin would come all the way down here. So this would all be white fur. So we're just catching sort of the edge of that here. So most of this is almost like a darker texture, a darker fur, sorry. Okay, and then just over this side, it's just a couple of longer, more wiry fur strokes. So when I'm looking at these, I'm also looking at the gaps between them. So if I can see areas of black through these marks, I'm trying to judge how I'm spacing the fur out because of that. So the more black you can see, the more spacing you need to have. between your marks. And again, just make sure you're keeping that pencil nice and blunt. You want it to glide over these indented marks. You don't want the sharp point going down into these marks. Not yet anyway, because we don't know if we need to darken up any of these indented highlights or if we've got enough. As we come over here, the spacing gets quite sparse. So there's a lot more gaps between this. But I'm struggling to see exactly where I've put my marks, so just need to reposition. I might just try and move my light a bit more, just for a short minute. That's a bit better. I can see a little bit more what I'm doing now. And I might actually make it a little bit brighter in this area. Not quite sure yet. So again, we've got these whiskers that are coming out. There's a lot of flyaway hairs in this area, so it's quite hard to just work your way through them. So let's start, before I sort of tackle this area over here, I'm just going to start darkening things up because I need to know the sort of value that I'm working with. So I'm going to go with I'm probably going to go with my 6B actually, because this is quite a dark area and we've got those layers to consider. I don't need as much sort of tonal build up in this area. And we can soften down some of these marks as well, like I've mentioned before, with our blenders. So we've got our makeup brush blender and we've got our paper stump blenders, so that can help. So see this mark here, this one's a little bit bright, so I will end up darkening that down. And again, this is just the second layer, this isn't the final layer. Just sort of getting a feel for what I want this area to look like, because it is, I might not follow the reference photo exactly, I might keep things a bit lighter, I might bring this fur up a little bit more, only because when you haven't got the rest of this tiger to sort of judge things off, I don't want it to look like he's got a black chin. I want it to be obvious that there's a whiteness to it here. So we'll just have to play that as we go along and see how that's going to turn out. But I'd rather keep it light to begin with and build it up if I want to, then try and lighten it back up, because it's a bit harder to do. This is that makeup brush that I told you about. Now this isn't anything special. This is just from Amazon. I don't even know if it's got a brand. It says Beakley on it, but I just got it in a set. Just a cheap set from Amazon. Because my wife would kill me if I started using her makeup brushes to blend graphite with. You can already see we're starting to build up that tone and that darkness. I'm just being careful not to press too hard, because like I said, I don't want to burnish, I don't want to damage the paper, because we haven't got a great deal of layers to work with. Start darkening that up because it's quite distracting. So like I say, you've got a couple of ways you can do that. Here I'm just using my Staedtler and I've just gone into actually the indented mark. So for a small area like that, that's what I look to do. The reason I like these makeup brushes is they almost sort of glide the graphite across the paper, whereas I find my paper stumps push it into the paper. So like I say, I need to really be careful with the layers that we're working with here. So I don't want to be pushing it in if I can help it. And also I like to push it across the surface because it will just help then soften those sort of hairs that I've got sort of here, because they're not the starkest of white hairs and they're a little bit softer, so the makeup brush is just helping soften those out. Because it's quite, when you are using this indenting technique, the fur marks, they don't tend to look the softest, so if you want them to be soft, you're going to have to sort of work back into them. I'm just going to pull some highlights back over into here. So I'm just made it into almost like a little dagger point, and I'm just pulling it back over. Now this helps sort of create a bit more softness. So I'm fairly happy with how that's looking. So we'll start working out over onto this right side now. and it's just following that same process. Now we know the sort of results that we're going to get. We know what we're happy to do and what we want to avoid. So I'm probably going to leave more of this white showing than what's actually on the reference photo at the minute. Now, this is actually on the reference photo, but I'm just going to darken it up a little bit, just because I feel like it's a bit distracting. So let's just So when you're blending as well, you'll notice that your tones actually go a lot darker, a lot lighter. You actually start lifting off some of that graphite. So that can work to your advantage sometimes if you feel like you've gone either a little bit too dark or there's a certain area of your shading that's gone a little bit too dark and you just want to help lighten that back out without using your eraser. Sometimes I will just use my blender and it seems to work quite well. So, still looking at our reference photo, just add in a few more hairs over here. It looks quite sparse on the reference photo. There's not a great deal of, well, as much on the right, on the left, let's say, as that's on this right, but I just don't want it to look too out of place. Now we're starting to come into the area where a lot of these whiskers are sort of curved down, so we're just, again, being careful with them. We don't want to press too hard and go into those whisker stripes, just because it's going to be a bit of a pain to keep erasing those out. So it's better to try and not go in there unnecessarily. again, I'm fairly happy with how things are looking there at the moment. So the darkest areas on this drawing we need to sort of start paying attention to. So obviously we've got some darkness that comes up here, darkness in this area and darkness around here. So we need to match all three of those up. So we're going to need to start getting those in place. Just before we do, I almost feel like I need some more flyaway hairs in that area. So I'm going to get out my electric eraser and that's just going to hopefully help add some fur back into that area. So I will mute the video at this point because it's quite loud. And then we're just going to work around these areas now. So just bear in mind that these aren't indented marks, so you will have to go around them. They do give quite a thick mark when you're using the electric eraser. You can shape obviously the end of it, so if you've just got a bit of sanding paper, you can just reshape it on there and that can help get you the shape that you want. But even with the smallest ones, and by shaping I feel like sometimes it is still a bit thick. Okay, I just wanted a few more little tufts of fur coming up into that area. Just felt like it looked a bit stark or a little bit bare. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start working up and over this side of his cheek, or the sort of lower part where this fur and these whiskers just overlap a little bit, and then I'll come back to you once that's in. Okay, so you can see now that we've managed to get in this side of the face just here. So I actually started to go in with my darkest pencil now. So that was the 9B, just because I wanted to start getting in those really dark values, because this area around here and this area just in here, they're some of those darkest parts of this entire piece. Now, obviously to do this area, I wanted it to look a little bit softer. I didn't want it to be as harsh. So to do that, I got my Kneadable eraser, and what I ended up doing was just sort of pulling back over into those dark areas, and it just gives a little bit of a softer transition between those two areas. So we're now going to do the exact same on this right side. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit more of the process. So now we know what works, it's just a case of sort of repeating that process. So looking at our reference, we've got the same sort of bit of fur that's here, but around this area that I've marked out. So I'm going to just start by putting that in. Now I'm not going to talk you through exactly how I'm doing this, because this whole entire piece has been a fur tutorial, so you should by now know the techniques that I'm using. So obviously we're just following that fur direction, paying attention to the fur length. It's a very similar fur length as to what we've had before, maybe just a little bit longer. But this area, like the area on the left, I don't want it to stand out too much. I want it to be a little bit softer, so I'm not going to put a great amount of detail into this area. It's just to give the impression that this is sort of going to be almost the cheek fur of this tiger. Now I've got a few more whiskers that actually need to come over into this area. And one that already has this one just here. I don't know if you can see it on the reference on the camera, but we just have to make sure we don't go over that whisker, because it will flatten down the edge, so we won't be able to see it when we go over it with our pencils. We could re-establish it and put it back in, but I just try and avoid it if I can. So like I said, the actual process we're going to follow is going to remain the same. So it's going to be a light layer of 2B to begin with, and that's just going to help sort of take away some of that white of the paper and just give us a bit of a base layer to work from. And you probably saw me when I was doing the other side, there was a lot of blending with my makeup brush. And again, that was just to really try and smooth out that area. And it's still not perfect. We still need to go back in and smooth it out a little bit more, because you can still see quite a lot of the paper showing through. But that's something that I'm going to do right at the end when I've got all of this piece in, or all the main sort of textures of this piece in. I'm just going to add another whisker just coming out here. That's just going to help give us a bit of variety. And again, I'm still trying my best to follow the fur direction as best as I can. So even though I can't actually see any fur in this area, I'm not sort of going this way with my strokes. I'm sort of trying to follow that, what I would consider the natural curve of where this, so it is black fur, where this black fur would actually be laying, even though you can't quite see it. We're still using that blunt pencil. You may have seen me use my Staedtler pencil when I was doing some of this area, and that's just to help blend in or darken some of those indented marks. Okay. So before I come in with my 9B, I'm just going to lay another layer down with my 6B. And again, this is just going to help build up the tone a little bit more. Like I said earlier, the fur in this area, just coming off this right side of the chin, it's quite thin, so there's a lot, you can see a lot of the black lines through it, so I don't want it to look too thick. And we'll probably come back and just adjust this area as well, so there's still a few areas that we need to adjust. So this is my 9B now. So I am still going to be careful with this one, so I'm not just going to be really sporadic with it. And even though we've got those whiskers indented, going over them with a soft lead like this, some of the graphite will still go into those whiskers, so it will still darken them up, so you do just need to be careful. So as you can see, when we use a soft lead like this, it's going to leave more of this paper grain showing through. So there's going to be a lot of blending on this sort of area, just to try and soften that out, because I don't really like the look of that. I want it to be nice and smooth. I kind of like how bright the chin is down there. It really helps sort of separate the two sides. I will probably still bring some of those darkness areas down though. So now I'm just going to start working over into the fur that's just in this corner. And again, we're just doing the same technique that we did for all that other fur. And then what we'll do, so see how this is quite a stark edge, and you can really see how the fur stops. We're going to do the same as what we've done over here, where we'll soften it over, but we just need to get the actual texture in first before we look to do that. And we'll also just bring up this dark area up to the edge as well.
It's always hard to get the angle right when I'm trying to film. So I'm just lightening this area, and I'm just going to work back and forth into it for a little bit, just trying to get it to look how I want it to look. And we're just trying to soften out that edge, so you can do it a couple of ways which I've shown. So you can blend into it with your blending stump, your kneadable eraser, your makeup brush, your blendable stump, and just soften it out that way, and it just softens out that hard edge. You can work back into it with your sharper pencils like your Staedtlers, and just try and get into those edge grooves, and it just gives a softer edge. And then you can also, like I say, work back over it with your blendings, your kneadable eraser. So on the reference photo, this area is actually quite a bright area of fur. But the problem is I don't really want it competing with the chin and the muzzle. I want the focus to be here. So these areas I don't want to be too bright, even though they are, like I say, in that reference photo. So this is where you can use a bit of your artistic license just to do whatever you want to do that you will think will make your piece look better. So for me, that's just having these areas a little bit darker so that they don't stand out as much and that they're not fighting for the attention. This area is just a constant sort of back and forth, just trying to
get that look that you're going for.
And that's the good thing about graphite, is you can just rework things to a degree.
So they don't appear, you don't have to worry that everything you put down is permanent. Okay, so I'm a bit happy with that area now. Obviously we need to re-establish some of these whiskers as well. We've made them a little bit faded. But I'm happy with sort of how this area, these two areas compare. They look fairly similar. To me, they look nice and soft. They're not competing too much with this area in the middle, which I kind of like. So final part is we need to just work up and join into this area, and then we need to do a final pass over the piece, rework this area, and just tidy some things up a little bit. So what I'll end up doing is I'll probably speed up just this very last area just up here, and then I'll come back to you when we're doing those final touches. Right then guys, now that we've finished touching up that side and finishing around that area, we're just now going around and just touching up a few different areas. Now most of this is just going to be almost tidying, so we're just going to sort of start building up making things look a little bit more neat, to be honest. So things like these whiskers, I'm just trying to clean those up a little bit as well. Because as we work through this piece, graphite will tend to go into these areas as well, so you do just have to pay attention to that. Now as we're moving around, we don't want to, or we need to be careful that we're not sort of putting this darkest value, so this 9B pencil, in all of these different areas, because we've worked hard to build up this tonal range, and we don't just want everything then to just be dark and flat. So just be careful, because it can get a bit, as you see things that need adjusting, it can be quite tempting just to start adding these darker tones everywhere. And the thing is, you may have already got to a point where you're happy and you want to stop. Just because I'm carrying on and adding more detail and adjusting a few different areas doesn't mean you have to. As long as you're happy with what you've created, that should be absolutely fine. I don't know if it's being picked up on camera, but in these areas as well, I'm almost leaving like first strokes in these black areas, because I want it to, I don't want it to just be one flat solid tone. I do want it to have a little bit of depth.
And sometimes you just need a little tap, and that's enough just to bring that lightness back out of those whiskers. So I'm just constantly looking back and forth to my reference photo. Now at this point, I do and I don't pay attention to my reference photo, which sounds sort of counterintuitive, but basically I'm looking at my reference photo to see if there's any areas of dark that either haven't been darkened enough, or an area of light that needs darkening, etc. Now the thing is, what I'm also doing is just seeing how each of these changes will sort of affect my piece on its own, because I don't want to have an exact copy of my reference photo. So I'm also seeing, well, in my piece, because I've kept this area lighter or this area darker, will darkening this area help? Do I need to make another adjustment? What do I need to do to make my own piece better? And you may look at your piece and think, I need to lighten that area up, or I need to darken that area down, but on the reference photo it doesn't look like I do. But if you think it's going to make your artwork better, then that's absolutely fine. You can try that and you can go for it. These are your own artworks, they're not exact photocopies. If you want to do a change and make it look better, then that's absolutely fine. So as we start coming to some of the end parts of this piece, I really hope you found this series helpful. I've tried to tell you sort of everything and show you everything I do when it comes to fur. I've tried not to hold back with anything. I've tried to be as honest as I can. But do let me know in the comments what you thought, or if you have a question about anything that I've done or the technique that I use, and I'll be happy to try and answer as best as I can. Obviously we're tackling quite a short fur here, but these techniques and these things that I'm telling you will transfer and relate to pretty much any animal fur. Long, short, curly, it's all very similar in regards to how I would tackle it. And if you're new to this technique, I'd love to see what you've managed to create with it. So don't forget, I am over on social media, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok now. So feel free to share with me your work, especially if you've wanted to follow along. I think fur in graphite is quite a it can feel overwhelming at times. So I hope this has sort of helped just break things down a little bit for you. So what I'll end up doing, I'll probably put this piece away for a couple of days, and then when I come back to it, there'll be a load of different things that I think, oh, I need to change that, or I need to alter that. I'm just having a final look over this piece. I'm just going to take a bit of a stand back and see if I spot any areas that I'm not happy with. So I think for now, I'll probably look at leaving this one here. There's not really many other changes or anything dramatic that I'd change at this stage. So I really hope you've enjoyed following along with this one. Like I said, I've tried to give you as much information as I can. I know it's been a fairly long series, but this is quite a moderately sized image and crop of fur. So it's about 5 by 7 centimeters. So there is quite a lot of detail that we've managed to get in there. But like I say, please let me know in the comments what you thought, if you have any questions, if there's anything different.